we're going to be discussing again on exam style questions, which is associated with the POBC unit, which is the principles of bookkeeping control. And as usual, I don't emphasize this enough because this is one of those hardest units you're going to encounter in your level 2 qualifications, and most likely to be the most difficult and technical side of the accounting applied in these questions will definitely help you with your further qualification, like in level 3 when you're going to do FAPS unit. Most of the content you learn here will be repeated on the level 3 FAPS, and the students who have done level 3 can attest to that one. And also for myself, doing this practice question comes in as very personal, because loads of times we have teach loads of things to the students when it comes to POBC, but when it comes to the exam style questions, they have a tough time digesting the wording they used in the exam. So many students come back with feedback saying, Mo, we've done all right, all the books, all the practice papers, all the workbook questions, we've done absolutely fine. When you come to the exam, we get stumped. It is simply because we expect the exam questions to be same as what we had done in the classroom. So that's why we recommend students to try different publishers. If you already use Kaplan in your college, trying to see whether you can do Osponds. If you do Osponds, do BPP. Or if you do BPP, try the Accountex software or the Accountex exam paper. So if you're doing online version of you do First Intuition, you do Mindful, or either way, vice versa. Try to mix and match different questions. Most of the time, students do one type of publisher's questions tend to have really hard time getting when they're going to the exam. They find it sometimes differently worded, and then they cannot adapt themselves to get to the underlying the questions, what they're asking you and everything. So here on this session, we will be doing a couple of, let me just quickly check it, papers which I have uploaded on our Teams channel, on not your Teams, it's on your Facebook group. You'll be able to see the file as well. And they are from Osborne's. This is my intention because this is one of the practice papers they released for the software, the online version of it. It is an interactive practice paper, which you'll be able to fill in the boxes here. I have kept the spreadsheet live as well. I don't need to worry about the spreadsheet side of it because at the moment, I will use only this paper when it comes to theoretical question. Then when I'm going to do a calculation question, I'll open the spreadsheet on the side to help me to, get the right numbers very quickly, because it's easier to do my formulas there. If you don't need it, okay, it's absolutely fine. In the exam, though, you will have the ability to take a pen, a calculator, and a bottle of water. Most likely that's all they allow you. So if you need to use your calculator, make sure your calculator is suitable for these exams. Sometimes when it comes to the bookkeeping exams, it's nice to have a scientific calculator where you can trace back all your transactions. Whatever you entered earlier, you'll be able to make any amendments if you made any mistakes. So without any delays, let's go into the first question quickly. I'm not going to go through all of it because I'm going to look at what is exam style questions are, going through quickly, and I'm not going to work out all these answers because I'm going to let you decide, because I have uploaded the question. So when it comes to exam style questions here, for example, there are a lot of true or false question. When the students get these true or false questions, the basic part of the students' understanding is they have to know the theory completely. They cannot make assumptions there. You have to remember there's only either this or that. It's no 5 choices there. So it's only 1 or 2. Even though you don't know the answer, you have a chance to get a 50-50 chance. But we'll make sure, trying to get the students to have the confidence of understanding what they're asking from there. For example, here, receivable ledger control account will identify the amount owed by the individual credit customers. Straight away, it looks okay to me because receivable ledger control and credit customers, those 2 statements are absolutely fine. They seems to be okay with it. But the key word here is the control account. The control account will not have the individual customer balances. You will have the total of the customers' balances. So if I'm going to talk about individual credit customers, I will say receivable ledger, not the control account. So that statement itself, it's going to be false. So this kind of a things you have to ascertain when you're doing this exam. when it comes to this theoretical questions, your knowledge base has to be absolutely spot on. Okay, because I may take a whole hour doing just this one paper quickly, but in case if I have time, I'll see whether I can divulge into the second paper. Now, next one, the total column from the sales return day book will be posted to the credit side of the receivable ledger control account. So here, receivable control account, they didn't say the word ledger. It's absolutely fine, but they're talking about the total columns from the sales return day book will be posted to the credit side of the receivable control account. So you ask yourself two questions. First, what side of the sales return day book I'm going to be concerned about? They're talking about the total column. And also you have to remember what is the impact of that on my receivable ledger control account. So first thing we have to ascertain, what is a receivable ledger control account? Receivable ledger control account is the balance the customer owe you, which is, I have done it because the sales were done on a credit basis. When we sold the goods to my customer on credit, you are creating an asset out of your customers. The assets normally will go on your debit side. The word I said normally, sometimes an asset could become a liability. You know that for an example, which is your bank account. Bank account normally an asset, but it could be a liability. So you will have the amount on the opposite side. So this one on the receivable ledger control account, you expect to see the balance on the debit side all the time. Why? According to your debt click, your assets are your debits. Okay, so you have to think about it. That is going to be on the debit. So what happens if you have a sales return? The sales return is something reduces the balance of your asset. Why? You're giving a refund back to them, or you're going to give them a credit note. So the amount the customer owe is going to be reduced. So if they're balance already on the debit side, the way you can only reduce it, you have to go on the credit side. The credit side will automatically bring that amount down. So the total columns of the sales return day book will be recorded on the credit side on the receivable ledger control account. So the true nature of this statement is correct. Okay. Next one. So they have given you this balances here. They're saying you have the following information from the accounting system showing information related to the payable ledger control account. See here, initially they gave a receivable ledger. In this time, they're going to give you a payable ledger control account. So you have to think about it. This one is the opposing side to your receivable ledger. If my receivable ledger is a debit balance, the payable ledger, which is having the credit customer supplier balances like these ones, it has to be a credit balance because this is the amount I owe to my suppliers. So 32,941 will be the balance. The payment to your suppliers, if I'm going to think about it, one, if I make a payment to the suppliers, it will reduce the balance. So that means if you already have a credit balance, to reduce the balance, you have to enter that on the debit side. Or you can think from the bank account perspective. Bank account is your friend here. Bank account helps you to identify whether your money in or out is going to be debit or credit. So if you know money coming into your bank account, it's a debit. Money going out of the bank account, it's a credit. So basically, I know if I paid my supplier, it's going to be a credit into the bank account. That means PLCA, or the payable ledger control account, will be a debit entry, 18,261 here. And then purchase day book. What does the purchase day book does to you? Hold on, this one is the wrong amount. The bank payment is 15,958. See, you have to check it. I'm going to do this by highlighting this one quickly. So that means I have done that balance. And also I have done that balance. Then now let's look at that next one. Next one is the purchases day book. That has to be going on the credit side. More I buy, more is going to cost me to pay them later. That means my liability is going to be increased. Therefore, it has to be on the credit side. 261. And everything else, if I'm going to notice this, the payable ledger control account, anything to do with the purchase return day book and the discount received day book will reduce their balances. Why? They are reducing your liability. So in this scenario, the amount going to be here, it is going to be the purchases returns day book, which is 227, and then discount received is 550. So you have the balance carried down figure. Coming on the credit side, the amount is going to be, let me work out the calculator quickly. Calculator, 3 2, oops, 32941 plus 18261 minus 15,958 minus 227 minus 550. That gives me 34,467. That is your balance of your account. And also remember, guys, in this exam, you have altogether 6, 7, 8 questions. The 8 question means for the 90 minutes you have there, I would on average allow 10 minutes per question. So that gives you 80 minutes altogether. And then you can have a bit of a mix and match around here and there. That allows you a little bit of a time to swap around some of the times, but always leave 10 minutes a margin of safety, like a breathing space for you to go back and check your answers. Okay, so here the last bit there, they're saying here the following balances from the VAT control account on 1st of June has a balance of £8,054. You have printed a report on June with the following VAT information. Now you have to go through what is the balance board down figure on the VAT control account. So we need to find out. I'm going to bring this one to help me with it here. So I'm going to quickly do VAT control account. So it's going to be my debits, and this is going to be my credits. So here I'm going to say at the beginning we started with 8,054. So I'm going to quickly put a line there, and that one, and then I'm going to do a quick one here. So let's say here balance board down 8,054, and then we have VAT on sales. Sales is going to be here, sales day book 8,000, 10,800, and then here VAT on purchases is going to be 8,056, and then they're also saying here payment to HMRC, that's going to be bank, which is 7596, and then we have a discount allowed. So you remember, if your sales this side, discount allowed will be in the opposite side, because it is in this scenario it's an expense to you, so it's going to be discount allowed, and that is going to be a total of 79. And the next side is discount received. So if you receive discount, it is going to be an income, so it's going to be same side as your sales. That is the VAT on it. So once we've done that, let's total these two columns up. So here I'm going to say uh, uh, say here done the total now. So the difference between them is going to be equal to this minus that figure. So okay, so the difference is going to be here is equal to this minus that, and this is going to be equal to that number. Yeah, it will have a connective. So 3283. So I'm going to write it here, 3283 here, because it's a connecting cell, so that has some problems there. So if you're going to look at that here, the amount is going to be 3283 as your balance carried down. So here, balance board down in that scenario, it's going to be also equal to that figure. So it's going to be 3283, and the answer will be credit, because it's your balance board down they're asking you, not the carry down figure. So the balance board down figure, it's going to be a debit one. Let me put it here. So that is correct. Okay, so when you get this kind of a question, it's 2 marks only. Remember, it is only 2 marks, so you have to make sure you do not waste too much time there to find out what are the information you're missing. You need to make sure follow the prompts. Like if you're slightly behind on time, flag and move on, because this question is not worth it to spend a lot of time. Okay, so now let's look at the next question here. Let me expand this more. Next question is, Identify which one of the following situation would cause a difference between payable ledger control account and the payable ledger. Here we go. This is where the reconciliation of control accounts comes into play. So they're saying here, a supplier is missed off the payment run for June. That's not going to be matter as a difference between them, because why? If you missed off, you haven't recorded it anywhere. The total columns of the purchase day book is undercast. So if I'm going to look at it here, the purchases day book, when I'm going to look at the total column is what where you're going to go in the payable ledger control account. So individual balances are fine, but the total is not going to be correct there because it's been undercast. So that is potentially an answer. But as I stating that before, if you have the net column, it only goes into the purchases account, not the control account. So the net column is not a matter for me when it comes to the payable ledger control account. Also, you'll be able to say you can eliminate all the other answers because you know these two, either this or that is going to be correct. So if one of them is correct, everything else is going to be wrong there. So you don't have to worry about that. The last one is a sneaky attempt there. An irrecoverable debt is recorded on F. Payton's account, ledger account, instead of T. Payton's ledger account. This is an error of commission when it comes to the receivable ledger. Why? This is a customer balances. You will not have irrecoverable debt as a part of my payable ledger. Payable ledger is when I owe to my suppliers. I can't be my own irrecoverable debt. So it is not correct. So the second one is the right one. Now let's look at the next one here. They're talking about you have been asked to reconcile the balance of the payable ledger control account to the supplier's report extracted from the accounting system. So you have this option here, having 4 of those supplier details there, but you have to keep on a key eye on what they're talking about the balance. If you see here, all these balances are stated, everything is a credit balance apart from this one supplier. That supplier showing you a debit balance there. So if we're showing a debit balance, that one is something of to be thinking twice why that could be a debit balance. Again, they didn't ask you that, but how can that be a debit balance? It could be I've made an overpayment to them, or after we made a payment, they issued us with a credit note. So that way, amount I owe them now become a debit balance. That means they're my asset now. So they owe me the money back. Most likely, you're not going to see that money unless you make a request of a refund, or you'll be able to buy goods from them up to a value of £300 without having to pay anything. Okay, so this is the reason behind it. So when it comes to calculating the balance, so I need to remember one of them is going to be a negative number. So I'm going to be having 305 2959 5978, and I'm going to say minus 300 because that number will not be calculated as a positive number. So here I'm going to auto sum in the total number. I'm looking at it here, 11,742, but 11,742. Now, next one, they're asking you here, balance on the payable ledger control account is 12,342. What is the difference between those two accounts? So if I'm going to look at that here, I'm going to have the other one, 12,342. The difference between them is going to be this minus that. It's going to be equal to 600. They didn't ask you which side is what. I'm going to say here, the payable ledger, which is the highest, and the payable ledger control is the lowest, the amount is £600. It does not matter. They didn't ask you a negative number anywhere. So you can actually use a positive integer of 600. Okay. Now, once you've done that, you have this question. This is the question you normally have a little bit more time to spend on. So I would like to go through this quickly with you because I don't want to flag and move on and come back again. In your exam, if you get a question like that way, if you notice that here, it's only for 6 marks and it's a true false question. Some of those ones, you don't need to even worry about writing a T account to work it out. But I will go through that quickly, see what we can do here to ascertain this statements are true or false. You can always flag and come back to that later in your exam. Now I'm going to go through here. So I'm just deleting this information now, and I'm going to use this T accounts to help me with it. Okay, so here they're talking about, let me see. Let's look at 2 questions. I'm going to keep 2 accounts here to help us to make sure we don't miss out anything. An invoice for £300 was posted to the wrong side of the individual supplier accounts in payable ledger, and this will result in difference between £600 between payable ledger and the payable ledger control account. So they're saying here £300 was posted to the wrong side of the individual customer account on the payable ledger. So if I'm going to look at that here, this is your PLCA, and this is the payable ledger account. Okay, so this is maybe a collection of it. Payable ledger control account normally start with £1,000 balance. I'm just going to give a hypothetical number. It can be 10,000, it can be a million, it can be even 100. Since they use 300, more likely if I use 1,000, it will not skew too much. So if I'm going to look at that here now, 1,000 balance on both sides. An invoice for £300 was posted to the wrong side of the individual supplier account on the payable ledger. So here, normally when I have a balance, I will do 300 here and 300 here. This is how would I do it. Instead of doing it here, we done it £300 now. So balance of this account is 1,300. And balance of this account is 700. So the proof is the difference between them is double the amount of error they made, which is £600. Because if you put something from this side to the other side, the difference is obviously going to be the double. So this statement itself is true. It says here that amount is going to be £600 difference, which we approve it. Okay, so that is absolutely fine. Now let's look at the next one. Discount allowed of £57 was deducted from the individual customer account in the receivable ledger, but was not entered in the receivable ledger control account. Receivable control account will be £57 higher in the total than the receivable ledger. Let's prove it again. So this is going to be receivable ledger control account, and this is receivable ledger. This time we start with £1,000 balance on both of those accounts. So let's see here. Discount allowed was £57 was deducted from the individual customer account, which is here. We have done this, and we should have done here as well on the control account. But they were not entered into the control account. So according to this was missed. So the balance here is 1,000, and this one is 943. Now, according to this, receivable ledger control account will be £57 higher. This is definitely £57 higher than this amount. So that statement is also true. This is the way I draw a T account to reuse it to my purpose to help me to identify these statements, whether they are true or false. Now let's look at the next one. Debit balance brought forward on VAT control account means that an error has been made when posting the transactions from the day books. So if I have a debit balance on the VAT control account, like example, if I say the VAT control account previously, the VAT account normally will have a credit balance. The balance supposed to be here. But I did say the word normally. Why? The VAT could be liability only if my output tax outweigh my input tax. That means my sales tax is higher than the purchase tax. But there is one exemption. Sometimes you may get a refund from HMRC because at the beginning of the business, you may have made more purchases than sales. That means your input tax exceeds your output tax. There's also one more exemption. You probably learn in level 3. Some of the sales you make can be zero rated, but your purchases are you paying the standard tax. That means you're only paying output tax or input tax, but you're not collecting any output tax. Therefore, all the tax you paid on your purchases could be claimed back. Therefore, the balance of the VAT control account can be on the debit side. So if you have a debit balance brought down figure, that is absolutely fine. It doesn't mean you made an error on the VAT control account. So the statement is true, false. In this scenario, they're saying an error has been made. It's not true. It could not be an error all the time. It could be, but they're making sounds like this is the only reason we have a debit balance. It's not true. We can have a credit balance and a debit balance. Next one, purchases return of £65 was recorded in the payable ledger control account but omitted from the individual supplier account. The payable ledger control account will show a balance of £65 more than the total of the payable ledger. So they're saying here this was omitted. It's not recorded in the wrong side. It's been omitted. So let's prove it whether it's right or wrong. So let's say here payable ledger control account and payable ledger. Let's start with the original balance we intended to say earlier, £1,000 on the credit side because they're both liabilities. So the purchaser's return recorded on the payable ledger control account. So here they have done £65, but they have omitted from the payable ledger. And therefore, the new balance here is £935. And this one is £1,000. But what we're going to do looking at it here, payable ledger control account will show £65 more than the payable ledger. But that's not true. This one is showing £65 less. So that statement is false. Now let's look at the next one. A sales return of £75 is being duplicated in the individual customer account has been recorded correctly in the receivable ledger control. The balance of the receivable ledger control will be £75 higher than the total balance. Again, let's delete all of this. Let's start with RLCA, receivable ledger. So here, balance of £1,000 we start with. Let's start with another £1,000 balance, not 10,000, 1,000. So here, they're asking about sales return has been duplicated on the individual customer account. So here, we done 75 and 75 again. And then here, we only done a 75. So the new balance is 925. And this one is 850. That is the balance now. So what, according to that, what they're saying here, the balance of the receivable ledger control account will be £75 higher than the total on the receivable ledger, which is absolutely true because here 925, here 850, it is definitely £75 higher. Now let's look at the last one. We've got two truths, two false, and one true, and could be a true or false. Do not rest on the laurels. Do not assume all the time it's going to be a false because you have three truths and two falses. Oh, sixth one has to be a false. Let's prove it. The total of the discount received day book. So if I'm going to look at here, this is going to be from the payable side again. £680 was posted on the wrong side of the payable ledger control account and entered correctly into the payable ledger. This would cause an imbalance of £680 between the payable ledger control account and the total of payable ledger. Now, can you see this here, guys? One of them was entered into the wrong side. Let's go back to the original error. Here, when we done that, if you put something on the wrong side of it, the balance difference will be the double the error. I'm not going to even bother doing this T account because it will be an insult because you already done it how to do this. So if my error has been duplicated, we know it's going to be one side, but this time it's been entered on the wrong side. So the amount it would cost is going to be £1,360, not 680. The payable and between the payable ledger control account and the total payable ledger. So therefore that is false. It has to be the double. It's got no other answers to it. Now let's look at the next question. Question number 3. This task about payment methods and reconciling cash book and to the bank statement. Payments for expenses by a traveling sales rep. What payment methods you prefer? You probably will do a credit card. So I'm going to say here, it is a credit card. It's the best option there. Employees payroll. How you normally pay? By chaps, standing order, direct debit. Oh, direct credit. That is what the BACS means. BACS means bank direct credit. Okay, so here we're going to say Control V, direct credit. Variable monthly payment for insurance, it's going to be direct debit. Why? It is going to be for variable amount. It's been requested by the payee. And the payer will set up fixed monthly payment to a voter right charity. That is going to be a standing order. Then you have a paper-based payment for vehicle purchases. It is going to be a bank draft. If you guys heard about a bank draft, it is a check drafted by the bank on behalf of you. That means it's more guaranteed. You do that for a small fee. You go to your bank, any bank, as long as you have a connection to it, like if you have an account with them, and you go there, you pay a nominal fee, pay them the money, and they will give you a check, which you can use it as a payment with any dealers willing to accept that one. Okay, and they're probably more than happy to accept it because it's a check from bank. And obviously, with the process of elimination, everything is done apart from the last one, which is CHAPS, which is a clearinghouse automated payment system, which is for a very larger payment. Like you're buying a property for £1 million, it goes through CHAPS system. So here they're asking you about outstanding lodgements and unpresented checks, direct debit, standing order, bank charges, counter credit. They want you to know what this description means. So here, when it comes to bank reconciliation, these are the different types of transaction you can use. First one is payments sent to suppliers at the end of the month have not yet appeared on your bank statement. So if I send payments to my suppliers, they haven't encashed yet, we call them as unpresented checks. So here, that's your unpresented check, unpresented. Oops. Next one is going to be checks and cash received by the businesses are deposited into the bank every day. We call them a counter credit because we go to the counter and credit them there. So it's going to be called a counter credit. Bank so fee charge for using the bank account are deducted from the bank every month. You obviously know that's going to be your bank charges. These marks are very critical, guys. They all add up. So make sure you know how you can go through your checklist there saying which one is absolutely matching with that one. The variable amount paid directly out of the bank every month for telephone charges. If I'm going to pay for telephone charges, a variable month, it has to be done by a direct debit there. Can't be a standing order, can't be a bank charges. It's not outstanding lodgement, so you know that answer for that one. Now, next one, they're asking you here, what adjustments you need to do. Do I have to adjust my cash book or do a bank reconciliation or neither? So let's look at the first one here. Payments sent to suppliers at the end of the month have not yet appeared on the bank statement. According to this, that means I have done my uh, entries into my cash book. My cash book already have a credit entry when I enter them into my cash book there. So do I have to update the cash book again? No. So therefore, you only do a bank reconciliation for them as an unpresented check. And how about this one? A customer did not deduct a credit note from their remittance. That's nothing. We don't have to worry about anything with the remittance because the credit note will appear on the next statement. So it's not going to be neither. Why? It won't affect my bank account or the bank reconciliation. Last one, but the least, the bank charge of 250 appeared on the bank statement. Wow, they paid £250 bank charge, but not yet been recorded into the account. That means it is already happened. That's why it's on the bank statement. What we do, we go into your cash book and update that by recording that on the credit side of my cash book. Why? It's a money out. Okay, so that is the option we have here. Now, that question was done very quickly. If you notice that here, this is all multiple choices or fill in the blanks or drag and drop. Normally in the exam, you just drag and drop. You don't even type this as it says here. You just pick it up and put it on that box there. And you'll probably have to select from a drop down menu. So now we come to the business end of it, task 4, which is the bank reconciliation. So here, let me put this now. See, I can show the whole of it. Yep. Okay. Yeah, I think I can see all of it now. Let me see, slightly zoom out. Yeah, here you go. Cash book and the bank statement. So the first thing you do when it comes to cash book and bank statements, it is very important when you're doing the reconciliation to check the opening balances. In this scenario, there is a discrepancy with the opening balances. Also, you have to consider your bank account. If it's a debit, bank statement will say it's credit. Why? It is going to be mirror image. It's opposite side. Why? For me, it's an asset. For them, it's a liability because they owe you that money back. So what you need to do here in this scenario is check up with the opening balances. That balance is not yet balancing with that amount. Could be because of something causing it. What could that be? If you look at the difference between those two balances, I can identify there is a balance staring at me eyes. If that £1,476. If I'm going to look at that here, if this supposed to be my opening balance, if that check clears on the following day, that balance will lead me to get this cash book balance. What could be the reason for that one? Can you see this check number here? That check number itself is older than these check numbers. The one given out first, Lasek Limited 474, that check is 67. That is the first check for that period. And this check is 57. So it is one of the checks may have been issued in the previous period. Because that was issued on the previous period, I'm going to give a chance of thinking of that check. It's one of the unpresented check from the previous months. So it has cleared now. Once it cleared, what happens with this one, and the opening balance matches with that one. So I have reconciled these two balances with that. Now we can carry on with the one side and the other side to check anything left over or not. So this one is matching with this one. 2529 is matching with that one. Then 2015 is matching with that one. This one, on the other hand, is still not matching. So we're going to do that in a minute later. 474 matching with 474. 4632 is matching with that one. So what I can see here, there are two entries here and two entries here. These are not matching each other. But what is the job for us to do though? Is to make sure we make the adjustment to the cash book afterwards, and then also we conclude the bank reconciliation statement. So if I go to the next page, it shows you what is preparing, update the cash book and prepare a bank reconciliation statement. So what they're saying here, closing balance board down. So if I'm going to look at the cash book, I have the closing balance carried down. That amount was 2,450. So the same amount will now go on the debit side, 2450, 2450. Yeah. But this time it's on the debit side. Why? If that is a credit balance, the board downside will be a debit balance. Now we have to make the adjustment. Now, what are the adjustment we're going to do? Which numbers I'm going to be using to update my cash book? Do I do anything with these two? Can you see here this and that? Do I need to do anything with them? No, they're already in your cash book. So what we need to do though is check your bank statement, see any of those transactions there needs to go into my cash book, which are these two. So these two here, one of them is for Minsky products. So I'm going to say here, Minsky products. And then the next one, it's going to be the bank charges. Minsky product is a debit entry because it's paid into the bank account 1596. 1596, and then the bank charges are 75 pounds. So I'm going to type here 75 pounds, and then what we're going to do, we're going to pick these two as they reconcile. That means my bank statement, all the transactions now in my cash book. What they're asking you now, what is the adjusted closing balance? The word they use is the closing balance. Closing balance is going to be your balance carried down. So where that's going to go to? This 2 minus this 75. So let me get my calculator out again. It is going to be 2450 plus 1596 minus 75. I have 3971, 3971 for the updated cash book balance. Fear not, this number, if we can achieve in this box, my bank reconciliation is being done properly. So let's look at the next one here. The next one is the bank statement. So let's see the bank statement. The closing balance of the bank statement is this amount, 3994, and it's on credit. That means we have money according to the bank. If my bank is overdrawn, for example, here it is here D there or a minus there, that number must be a negative number. You have to make sure you choose a negative option there. Like you go there, put a negative there. Okay. In case this one, you don't have to worry about it. Now what we need to do, we need to add any outstanding lodgements to it. What are the outstanding lodgements? The ones I have put into my bank is not yet showing in my bank account as money coming in. This one is 1740 from Baker and Co. So I'm going to say here Baker and Co. and 1740. So I'm going to say here 1,740. This is the total amount to add. And then what we're going to take away? Take away this one from Barbie Limited, Barbie PLC, 1763. So here I'm going to say paste 1763. I don't put no negative numbers here. The reason why, it already shows it is less. That means I need to take it away. So this one is going to be add, and this one's going to be taken away. So please do not use a negative number here, because this is not what they mean. They only want you to know what number we're going to put it there. So once I'm going to reconcile this, 3994 plus 1740 minus 1763, I'm going to have 3971. That number is exactly the same number we have it on my adjusted cash book. That means my bank reconciliation did work. So we get that out of the way now. Now let's look at that one. We're halfway through. We still got only few more minutes to go. So we whiz through what we have here. Now they're asking you in this scenario to complete this journal. This journal is very important. We get that right. Absolutely. What they have here, Dwight has been using a manual bookkeeping system to record his accounting transaction up until the 1st of April 2016. Now he wishes to start using the digital bookkeeping system. He has given you the following opening balances to input into new system. So you have all of those here. And you have 4 entries. But if you notice 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, there are 5 entries here. So it could be something missing. We'll find out later on what it is. Let's start entering them. So office, equipment, then we have bank overdraft, then we have bank loan, and then we have inventory. So we've done all of those here. But I need to know what does each mean to me. If you know your debt click well, this one is equal to 3,760, which is an asset, is on the debit side. The bank overdraft, it's going to be a liability, it's going to be on the credit side. The bank loan is a liability, it's going to be on your credit side. Inventory 1,760 on the debit side. What is the problem with this journal? The journal has 2 attributes. One of them, your debits must be you have one debit or one credit, or one debit, multiple credits, one credit, multiple debits. It does not matter. And also both balances must equal to each other. You cannot have a journal with just only one entry or 2 entries on the same side. It has to be equal and opposite, but for the total figure. Okay, so if I'm going to look at that here, if we add these two, I'm going to get what? 5,520. But this side, I'm not getting that same number because there is something missing. You guys remember there is a concept there. Assets minus liabilities is going to be equal to your capital. Because the count is not matching here, that means the difference between them has to be your capital figure. So the capital will be that minus that. So if I'm going to have 5,520 minus 2060, it gives you 3,460 pounds, which is the value of your capital here. Okay, so this will give you 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 marks, maybe 5.5 marks. Okay, I'm not sure exactly how much they will give it here. Probably 5.5 or 6 marks for this one. Okay, so the total figure is 5,520 on the both sides there. I think it's going to be 6 marks because 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and totals you get 1 marks there as well. So it's going to be 6. Now they got this one here, account assistant for a small business. When analyzing the receivable ledger control account at the year end, the accounts manager decided to write off total debts worth £960, which have been outstanding for more than 6 months. It's your total debt. So they were originally were in your receivable ledger control account. So this receivable ledger control account had a debit balance. Now this amount has to be written off. You have to do RLCA on the credit side. So here 960, and then the entries on the debit side will be your irrecoverable debt account, recoverable debts, and the next one has to be VAT. Why? Because you claim the VAT back. So if that is the gross, divided by 6, you get £160, which is your VAT you're going to claim back, and times that by 5, 800, that is your irrecoverable debt amount. This is your expense. This will goes in your profit and loss account as an expense. This £160 will go into your VAT account as a recoverable VAT there, and you lose £960 of your assets to that one. Okay, so this is the reason for that one, is writing off a irrecoverable debt. Now let's look at the next one here. This is the wages control account. Many of you may have seen my previous videos as well. You have to consider when you see this journal to identify the nominal codes. Can you see these two nominal codes here? I'm not going to select now. So this nominal code and this nominal code means something other than this nominal code. So if I'm going to look at that here, I'm going to choose this one. These three are different nominal codes to the first two. So the first two start with sevens. These are your expenses, and the ones start with 2 are your liabilities. Means you have to owe to somebody else on a later day. For example, payee and the national insurance goes to HMRC, and the wages goes to the employee. But at the beginning, we create them as a liability. When we pay them out, we clear that liability off. So here, what is your total expense? If you are employed by a company, the employer pays you the gross wages, and then also they have to make the contribution from their side for national insurance. So if I see these two amounts, this will be your expenses. So both expenses, we can write it here, £65,350. And what is that employer national insurance contribution here? 7353. So it's going to be going here 7353. According to the rules, what you need to do, the total number of these expenses, this and that together, will be equal to these three here. So you need to check how I'm going to get to that point. So let's see here. What is your payee? Payee is going to be 12,259. So control V. And the national insurance is going to be the amount I'm going to be paying to HMRC from the national insurance side of it. It's going to be your wages, the employer's national insurance plus the employee's national insurance, 7353, which is going to be equal to 13,415. But what is your net wages? How I'm going to find the net wages? You're going to find the net wages by having your gross wage minus anything you pay from your employee wages. This is these two, which is your national insurance for the employee minus income tax. You're going to be taking these two away from the gross wages. So let's see here. What is the number we have now? It is going to be 65,350 minus 12,259 minus 6,062, which is giving me 47,029. So here, 47,029 here. Now, if I add these two numbers and if I add these three numbers, I will still get the same figure of 72,703 pounds. 72,703 pounds. You'll get that on both of it. You can test it if you like to, but since the time constraint, I'm not going to go through calculating it because they not ask you the total here. Now let's go to next question, which is task 6. So here on the task 6, what they're asking you is to identify the errors. So you have to remember what type of errors are each they constitute. In this scenario, there are certain errors there which allow you to remember those 6 type of errors which not cause the trial balance to imbalance. Means your trial balance will still match, but there is still an error there. And these are the 6 names. So if I'm going to go here, and if I'm going to select all of it, and these are the 6 errors disclosed by the trial balance there. So here, I'm going to use the different color for the next few. So here, let's look at the first one. So here, a credit purchase has been entered into the purchase account, VAT account, not been entered into the purchase account, VAT account, and the payable ledger control account. Simple thing is an error of omission. So here, I'm going to select all of it, and I'm going to say error of omission. Next one is Entry into the purchases of office stationery has been debited to the office equipment error account in error. So if you look at that here, one of them is the stationery, but it's been entered into the office equipment account. One of them is an expense, the other one is an asset. So therefore, the accounts will still match. Your debit is on the debit account there, credit's on your credit account, but it's on the wrong type of account. Wrong type means one of them is an expense, another one asset. We call that an error of principle. So here, error of principle, we copy and paste it here because it is not supposed to be in the right account there. Next one, the cost of fuel of £690 has been recorded correctly into your cash book and the vehicle expenses account, but the figure was £960 entered in error. So that means instead of 690, they put 960. How are we going to call this error? This error is going to be called the error of original entry. So what we do here, we can correct it by removing it by debiting and crediting the original entries accounts. We take that amount away from that way, means opposite side, and then we go back and enter the £690 into the current account, debit into your vehicle expenses and credit into your cash book. But you can also do the net effect of those two errors, and we either take away or add to those accounts to make sure the balance has come back to the original way. We may see some examples later on. The amount of 1,250 for the premises insurance has been debited to the insurance account, vehicle insurance account. So that means it's two different expenses account, but they are wrong. If they are wrong on that way, we're going to call them as an error of commission. In this scenario, the error could be corrected by taking the amount away from the vehicle insurance by crediting it and debiting the premises insurance account there. The last one, but the least, the amount of 1,560 of the commission received was credited to the bank account and debited to the commission received account, which is absolutely wrong. Why? When you receive money from your commission, it has to be some reason light isn't working. I'll probably have to check that lights. So in this scenario, the debit should have been in the bank account, credit should have been in the commission received account. That means the entries were reversed. So we call that the reversal of entries. Okay.
You need to change the top one, Mo.
Sorry?
You need to change the top one from commission to omission.
Oh, it is omission. You're absolutely right. I chose the, oh yeah, maybe I omitted when I tried to scan from here. I think it changed. Yeah, I think it because of the, yeah, somehow I got the wrong number there. Yeah, it should be only 1M instead of 2Ms. So that is correct now, is omission. Thank you, Emma. Let's carry on with the next one. The following errors have been identified when reviewing your year-end accounts. The receipt from the customer total at £5,689, but as there were no remittance advice to identify which invoice to payment that related to, it was included in the suspense account. So normally this what should have happened. So here, let's do that on the T accounts now. I'm going to say here, suspense. Okay, so the entry should have been debit, bank, credit, RLCA. This what should have happened. Why? When you receive money from your customers, money comes into the bank account, which is a debit, and the entry is supposed to be going on to RLCA as a credit. But according to them, they're saying here, since there is no remittance advice to identify which invoices are payments related to, it was included in the suspense account. That proves the usage of the suspense account as a holding account until we find where it needs to go to. If I just done debit RLCA, so credit RLCA, the problem is going to be what? Because we don't know which account that's to allocate to. So what they have done now, instead of doing that one, they put that into the suspense account. So here, suspense account balance board down, we started with the amount of whatever amount they have said. They haven't said how much amount it is it? No, that's fine. So here we have something allocated to the suspense account, 5689. Okay, so this is the amount we had a suspense account added to on the credit side. So we need to know how do we get rid of this number later on. Now let's look at the next one as well. The rent expense of £575 coded to the insurance expense account. So in this scenario, the insurance expense account is supposed to be the error of commission here. Why? Instead of going to rent expense, we put into the insurance expense. So we need to remove it from this account and enter it into the rent expense account. The entry is supposed to be entered like this way: debit, rent, credit, bank. But instead of entering rent, we have done it here as insurance. So we need to make sure that entry has to be removed and the entry will be recorded into your rent account. Bank account is fine here and here, both scenarios. The bank account is fine. There's no errors in them. Only the error is going to be in my RLCA and the suspense account. Suspense account is going to be 5689. This is the amount we started with. So how are we going to clear this now? We found the error. The entry needs to go back into RLCA. What do you need to do? We have to debit the suspense account. So let's go here, suspense account. Suspense account, debit 5689, credit RLCA, and that is going to be 5,689. This way, the amount will come back to the RLCA account and the suspense account RLCA 5,689 will clear the suspense account balance. And the last but the least, the entry for the rent and the insurance, because the insurance account is the incorrect account here. So we say insurance account credit 570 and rent expense account 570 debit, because you remove the amount from the insurance account, enter that into your rent expense account. So this should give you 4 marks. So it's 5 marks here, 4 marks there, and then we have one more question. Oh, two part of it. We need to make sure we clear this one out. So let's quickly do this one, and then we'll enter the last two questions after that. So they're asking here, a partially completed trial balance has a debit balance of 139,515. So here 139,515, and then the credit side is going to be 128,616. So they ask you, what is the balance of suspense account? Where the suspense account go here? It goes on the lesser side, where you're going to have the lesser amount. So it's going to be minus that figure will give you 10,899. And that is the side the suspense account is going to go to, because that way it equals both sides on the debit and credit on your trial balance. So now what they say here, we have found the suspense account. Can you notice that here? Look, these two suspense account balances. So here 9820 and 1079. If I'm going to look at that here, equal to that plus that, it proved the suspense account balance is right, because I said to you this is on the credit side. These two entries will be going on the debit side of the suspense account, eventually clear the error. But they didn't ask you to do that. Our job is how we're going to balance these accounts with the new information we have received. So for that one, we need to understand where the entry is going to initially believe it. So here, bank loan. So bank loan, it's going to be a credit balance. They are saying the original balance is 15,680 pounds. Now what they is asking you here, with this journal entry, according to this, there is a journal entry of 9,820 on the credit side. If that entered into the general ledger, it will add to this balance. So here, that balance is now going to be 25,500. That is the new balance there, 25,500. And is that going to be debit or a credit on my trial balance? If you notice that here, it's your debt click knowledge again. This is a liability. Therefore, in trial balance, it's going to be a credit balance. Now let's look at the commission received. Commission received, on the other hand, commission received. So commission received. This is normally a debit balance or credit balance. It's the credit balance is a income. So 9,560 pounds. But the entry we're going to make from this journal, it's going to be on the debit side, 3216. So it is going to be going here, 3216. So the balance brought down figure for this one, new balance, will be that minus that figure of 6,344. Is that going to be a debit or a credit on the trial balance? Again, it is going to be on the credit side. Now let's look at the next one, discount received. I'm going to do the same one, discount received. Let me go in here. Let's say here, discount received. Let's do the opening balance. Can you tell me about your discount received balance? Is that going to be a debit or a credit? It is going to be a credit again because it is an income, 6,758 pounds. Now, what is the change we're going to make here? 3,216 on the credit side. So 3216 on the credit side. So the balance for this one, it's going to be 9,974. 9,974. Is that a debit or a credit again? Again, it is an income. It is a credit. Last but the least, heat and lighting. So we're going to choose this one here now. H and L. The balance was 8,567. Oh, suddenly that's on the debit side because it's an expense. If that's an expense, entry is on the debit side. The journal entry for 1,079 pounds, it is going to be on the credit side. So the balance is going to be here equal to this minus that figure. It is going to be 7,488, and that is the debit balance. So that should resolve that question. Remember, guys, this is the biggest question of this whole exam, this journal question. Task 6 is your make or break. I think it has 14 marks altogether. So if I'm going to look at that here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Yeah, it is 14 marks there on that question. So you have to be very careful when you're working out this question to make sure you don't make any mistakes. And the last two questions are normally 10-mark questions. But these are very straightforward questions when you come to it. Because if you look at that here, this is the balance carried down question. And then what you need to do, once you total this, these figures needs to go on your trial balance. The only way you can succeed on this one, you can either get 10 or get 0 if you know your debt clicks. So please revise your debt clicks, guys. Debt click means debit. This is going to be your debits. Debits, credits, and then you have your assets, liabilities. It's not assets here. It's going to be expenses. Then you have assets, income, drawings, capital. So if you notice that here, the first 4 letters is going to be dead, and this 4 letters is click. So if you remember which side there goes, you'll be able to work that numbers out. So whatever you're going to do, guys, the balance carried down, it's going to be balance brought down on my trial balance. So if I have it here, I'm going to do one example of it quickly here. The amount is going to be 4,008 pounds. It is going to be here 4,008 pounds. If I do that, I'll get no marks. Why? It asks you to do the answers to 2 decimal places. Even though it's a full digit, make sure you do the 2 decimals. 4,008 pounds. Here on this scenario, we have plant and machinery. So I go to my trial balance, find the plant and machinery. Where's the plant and machinery? 4,008 pounds. .00. That gives you the marks you're looking for. You get 1 mark for this, 1 mark for this. So you get 1, 2, 3, 4 marks, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then you get 2 marks for here. That is your total 10 marks. So I'm going to let you do this one because end of the day, it's simply working out your debits and credits. I'll do one more here. Okay, so let's see here, the capital account. So you have 18,750 minus £3,225.50. That gives me £15,524.50. And the same number will go into my capital account on the credit side. Can you see here? If I have my balance carried on the debit side, it will be going on the credit side of my trial balance here. So once you've done that, you need to make sure you total all those numbers and you will get those two numbers equal to each other. That means you've done all your calculations right. So we have about a couple of minutes to go through the last question. In this one, many of the students who had trouble with it is what they fail to understand when it comes to this journal. The journal has already been done. They're not asking you to do a journal here. All they want you to do, update the numbers to find the balance of these T accounts. So if I'm going to look at that here on that task 8, the one they're asking you to do is how you're going to update the trial balance to get those numbers there. So if I notice that here, these two suspense account balances, it does not matter to me. All it matters is how you're going to update these two figures into these accounts, and then we redraft those numbers to get that balance here. Okay, so let's see here quick example of it. The first accounts was sales 1,250 on the debit side, because it was an error of omission doing entry only one side only. You're supposed to have a debit and a credit. They have done the debit entry, but they forgot to do the credit account in your cash sales account. So this way, it is going to increase this balance of the cash sales, or sales does not matter in a whole sense, cash or credit sale is going to increase your income. Therefore it is going to be 30,827 plus this 1,250, which gave you 32,077. You go here 32,077. They didn't ask you to do that in decimal in this side, so you don't have to worry about that. And the last one is the receivable ledger control account. It had a balance of 11,131. Add this 6,378, so 6,378, which gives you 17,509 pounds. So we're going to go here 17,509 pounds, and then you have to total these columns to see that numbers are matching. So let's do that here. Let me total all of that. 6,000 plus 9,673 plus 22,085. That gave me 55,967 pounds. And I'm very happy that number will match on the other side as well. So 32,077 plus 8,890 plus 15,000, which gives me 55,967 pounds. So all numbers have matched there, guys.